Hi everybody, Catholic Rants here. Do you see that? Like the lighting, my camera's not picking up. There's no lights there. My camera's having trouble detecting the light coming out of this thing. That's weird. Okay, anyway. So yeah, Catholic Rants here everybody. I have another freaking rant to give you today, and I'm super angry because I just read another article. I sometimes wonder why I even read these articles. It just makes me angry. The things that are going on in the world just constantly berate my patience all the time. So there's this little kid out in Utah who and Ash Wednesday just happened. Today's Thursday. But Ash Wednesday 2019 just happened yesterday. I went there to church with my wife. It was great. Apparently a Catholic out in Utah who's just a little kid. He went to, I guess, Mass in the morning, and he went to school later. I hope this isn't too distracting. I'm just going to roll with it if you guys don't mind. But anyway, he went to school, and he had a very clear, ash on his forehead. And you keep hearing about, sometimes people have issues with Catholics walking around with the ashes on their forehead. They have, politicians will be walking around with it. People on television will have it on there and things like that. The teacher had him remove the ashes from his forehead with a disinfectant wipe. It says, you have to take that off your head right now. Didn't really give him much of a reason as to why, but the kid's just like, oh my gosh, the teacher's telling me to wipe it off. I'm going to wipe it off. He's just a little kid. This rant today isn't necessarily just about this and the sort of pressure that a lot of Christians have about expressing their faith publicly. There's so many other religions out there that nobody seems to have an issue with people expressing publicly, but it's only with Christianity that people really seem to get really worked up about this kind of stuff here in this country nowadays. Wearing a cross to work at the office, that offends me. Or having a picture of Jesus on your desk, or walking around with Ash Wednesday ashes on your head. My rant today is about state schools, state-run schooling. If you're a traditional Christian out there, or traditional Catholic or whatever, I know it might be very difficult for you. I know it might be financially stressful, but I really want to put forth this idea that homeschooling or private schooling in schools that you really look into, a school that teaches solid doctrine and doesn't send your kid off the deep end. As opposed to state schools, don't send your kid to state schools. I know it's free and I know it's easy, but that's the allure of it. That's how they get you. They're going to brainwash your kids. I don't know how many times I have to reiterate this to people, but state-run schools teach, if you really want the state to start educating your Christian children, it's going to be very difficult for them to retain their Christian faith. They attack your kids' faith in Jesus every single day. Not only from what the teachers are saying, but the environment that they're raised in with the kids around them. Because it's a hodgepodge of atheist kids, of Muslim kids, of Hindu kids, of all sorts of different perspectives. And you know what? That's fine. You have to experience that when you go out into the world into the first place. But when you are a Christian parent trying to instill into your child gospel values, the values and the teachings and the doctrines of Jesus Christ into them, those early years are the most important for them to actually hold on to those sorts of things. Now, there's exceptions which way, people who really force the Christian faith onto their kids and not actually teach them the fact that it is meant to be a humble acceptance of what Christ is supposed to teach you and make you a better person, to make you a good person. And then people just rebel out of spite. It's like, oh, my parents never let me do what I wanted when I was a kid, so I rebel against them out of spite. You have to be loving to your children, but when you send them to these state schools, this is the kind of thing they have to deal with. They have to deal with the drugs that are at school. They have to deal with the sexual promiscuity that are at schools. They have to deal with all the different secular influences that infect their minds. All of that stuff is there. I once did a post on social media that really got people angry, especially some folks in my family. People took real issue with my criticism of state schools. Would you knowingly allow your kid to walk down a dark alley where they're selling crack cocaine or whatever drugs happen to be down there? No, it'd be dangerous, wouldn't it? Would you knowingly send your 5-year-old, 6-year-old, or even your 12-year-old son or daughter into a porn shop? Would you just let them walk in there and look around? Ooh, hey, look at this, look at this. No, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't, would you send your kid into a brothel? Oh, hey, look, mommy, look at all these weirdly dressed women. That's essentially what every state school is combined. Here in Ohio, we're dealing with heroin. Heroin's a big problem here. And it's in our schools. It's like all of this crap it starts with people who tested out this kind of thing when they were a kid. Talk to so many men who are addicted to pornography, and you ask them, when did you start looking at the stuff? They said, when I was at school, someone showed me a nudie mag, or someone showed me some website on their phone, and that's how I got hooked. And now they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff. How many people started doing drugs because they started smoking when they were like 11 or 12 or 13, and then they got addicted to tobacco, but then they started drinking, and they started doing even more harder drugs. It all starts when you're a kid. How many of these people say they started doing this stuff when they went to public school, when they went to state-run schools? I understand people criticize homeschooled kids as, sort of being these fuddy-duddies and having odd personalities, but honestly, that doesn't go for everybody. Like, being homeschooled doesn't, like, rob you of having social experiences. That's stupid. That's just a stupid argument. It's not true. People who are homeschooled tend actually to be pretty well adjusted. I'm not gonna lie. They tend to be pretty well adjusted. And, just talk to anybody who's addicted to drugs, addicted to porn, addicted to sexual promiscuity, addicted to all these major issues that plague their life. It's probably due to some sort of interaction they had with somebody when they were young and when they were at school, when they weren't with their family, when they weren't with their close friends, maybe in a local neighborhood or something like that. I know there's so many exceptions and there's so many different situations for all sorts of people, but come on, use your common sense here. Just use your common sense. Don't you think if you look back to any sort of addiction you might have or any sort of problem that you've it's been with you your whole life, didn't it start when you were younger? And don't most people go to state schools? Don't you think it was because some other kid or some other teacher or something that was going on in that state-run institution, you were thrown into that and it got you hooked? Just be honest with yourself. Isn't that where it started? Well, I think that's what millions of Americans can say and millions of people across the world can say. And that's why I'm never sending my kids, whenever they happen to show up, I am never, ever letting my kids set foot into a state-run school. I'm either going to teach them myself, my wife's going to teach them, or I'm going to find the best school I can possibly find, and I don't care how much money it costs. I'll freaking work 2 jobs, 3 jobs if I have to give my kids the correct education that they need. I think that's the perspective that Christian parents need to have. Your kids' spiritual lives depend on this. Because I'm not saying it's impossible for your kids to change out of school. It's not impossible for people to, because I went to state-run schools for the majority of my education. I started out in a Catholic school early on, but it got too expensive, and I have like ADHD and stuff, and it was hard for me to focus. And then I went to state-run schools, and that's where all of these different influences entered into my life. But I am the exception. I am the exception. I was able to realize some of these bad influences early on, but most people don't. And those are the people we have to worry about. Those are the people we have to look out for. Not be afraid of them, but no, we have to reach out to that. We have to reach out to the fact that they have been influenced by the evil degradation in our state-run institutions. Not just for the moral aspect of it, but also what they're teaching you in the classes, what they're telling you on television, what they're making you watch, making you see. And it's getting worse. I mean, I thought it was bad back in 2007. I was like, well, what was it? I was like 17 years old then. I thought it was bad then, hearing about, the sex education and how things were going back then. I was like, oh my gosh, how bad is it going to get now? Now they're having people in drag read to children, in libraries. Okay, drag queens used to be this underground thing that deviants would do. It was like this deviant art style that was sort of on the fringes of accepted things that you do in the dark. Now it's front and center and put in front of your kids. No, don't send your kids to state schools so they don't have to deal with this kind of thing. Let your home and let this little world you create for your children be a place where their faith can grow. And then when they eventually do have to go out into the real world, they'll be strong enough to withstand it. That's what it boils down to, because these schools don't want your kids to be Christian. They don't want your kids to believe in Christ. They don't want your kids to follow what the scriptures say and what the gospels teach you. They don't want you to do it because those kids and that sort of influence becomes a thorn in their side to get done in society what they want to get done. And it almost always involves controlling you more. You're easily controlled if you're drugged up or sexed up or your mind is addled by the influence of pornography. It's easy to control a population who's into those kinds of things. So make it so that your kids are not into those things, and don't send them into these dens of sin. This is what these schools are. We've all seen it. Kids performing sex acts in the bathroom and in the back of the bus. It's everywhere, under coats and stuff. I would be sitting in the bus, and I knew kids in the back were like putting their coats up and doing stuff with each other under there. That's just what was going on. Kids bullying each other all the time in horrible ways. School shootings happening. Kids getting beat up and thrown into lockers, or all that stuff. All that stuff is going on. You think I want to send my kids there? No. And you're crazy if you want to send your kids there. Oh, it builds character. Yeah, right. It builds addictions. It builds an awful life. Kids committing suicide because they can't deal with the frustrations of not having any friends, or say your kids are trying to live a good Christian life and they get singled out early on there, and then they either cave into the pressure to be like everybody else, or their life is a living hell because they won't conform. Don't send your kids there, man. Do whatever you can to get them out, because it's destroying them. It's destroying everything. We need our own institutions. We got to do something about this kind of stuff. I know it's so easy to send your kids to a free school, but it's not really free. It's costing your kids their eternal lives. It's costing your family legacy everything.